true.
Somebody at the top of the line!
It's a week before Christmas. Children going to school are not really having their minds in the classroom. They're thinking about the fact that Christmas is coming. There'll be Christmas parties in the classroom. There will be Christmas festivities going on in the school. There'll be a general sense of excitement. And all that was shattered in Madison, Wisconsin yesterday. Shots rang out. 3 people are dead, 2 critically wounded. And the President of the United States comes forward and says that children in school should be learning reading and writing, not duck and cover. Using that as the opening to more talk about evil guns and the legislation of gun control. First of all, the little term duck and cover is a term originally coined by the United States government back in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, when on a regular basis, those of us who attended school then were told that we were all in imminent danger and that a nuclear attack from a country like Russia was imminent, and we could save ourselves by ducking and covering under our school desks. Okay. I have been the administrator of 3 different Christian schools. I can tell you that as a father, I want my own children safe. As a school principal, I want all the children safe. As a fellow human being, as an American citizen, my heart goes out to obviously the families of the victims, the families of the students who were there, and how frightening of an experience this had to be for the faculty, the staff, the pastor, the administrators there. But not because I'm a quote-unquote Second Amendment NRA guy am I here not wanting to deal with this and just defend gun rights. No, let's take a step back here. And let's ask the real questions. Because people say, every time there's a school shooting, you say that your prayers are with us. We don't want your prayers. We want laws so this doesn't happen again. There are already lots of laws on the books. The shooter, she was 15. They don't yet have a motive. They're not sure if the teacher and student that were shot were somehow part of that motive, or it was just a reactionary in the moment and then the student took their own life. But there is, in our society today, societal depravity and decay. That is a fact. Nobody wants to talk about that. I have said for years, guns have been around forever. Guns used to hang over the mantle on the fireplace. Kids have been bullied. Back in the days of the pioneers, put in a little bit of pop culture, Little House on the Prairie, all those run-ins that Laura had with Nellie Olson. She never once went home, grabbed Pa's rifle off the mantle and headed up to the Walnut Grove School and shot the place up because she was hacked off at Nellie Olson. My father went to school at a time that he would take his .22 rifle, put it in his locker when he was in junior high school because he was going to go squirrel hunting after school. A few years later, if you were a student bringing a gun to school to go hunting after, you had to take it to the office and leave it there. Certain rural places, it was common for boys that drove themselves to school to have a gun rack in the truck and a gun hanging there. Truck could be open and unlocked all day. Nobody touched it. Nobody bothered it. Schools weren't being shot up. But in the last 30, 40 years, as we have ramped up in our society an entirely anti-God, secular worldview on everything, where we are over-sexualizing children. We are overstimulating them with gratuitous, mindless violence. When we are telling our children that they are nothing more than evolved animals. When the constant message around them through styles of music and forms of entertainment are nothing but violence on top of violence on top of violence. The shift is in the society. And unless we're going to deal with that, everything else is I don't mean to sound trivial, it's a Band-Aid. It won't fix anything. This 15-year-old girl did not walk into the local gun shop and purchase a firearm. Now, at the production of this, we don't yet know where she got the firearm. I'm going to assume from home, and though I am a Second Amendment advocate and I do own firearms, plural, as a firearm owner, we do have an obligation to make sure that they are secure and safe and kept away from minor age children, that they do not have any access to them, period. But what we don't want to address is the societal decay, which is why we have this problem. I could tell you in the Christian school where I was administrator in the state of Florida, I saw this coming. I was tired of turning on the news. This was during the Obama administration. It seemed like every few months we were dealing with a school shooting. And of course, Sandy Hook was the big one. And that was when I trained our staff. We didn't have metal detectors for the kids to come through, but we did put up fencing and gates, and we centralized all main traffic into the building through one location. Once the kids were inside our facilities, and we had multiple buildings, but the school grounds themselves were encompassed with fencing. You had to have keys and codes to get in and out of buildings, but even then, somebody can climb over a fence. We understood that that was simply a slowdown deterrent. It wasn't something that was actually going to prevent or stop. So we did develop a lockdown procedure. We had codes that would go out over the intercom, and teachers knew immediately then to lock down their classrooms, lock down students wherever they were, the gym, the library, etc. We had all that in place. I also had one other thing in place, and I advertised it and I made it known. I had staff who were armed. I had staff who were armed. I'll say it again. I had teachers, I had faculty members, I had staff who were armed. Our children were protected. I brought in law enforcement annually to go over procedures with my teachers. I had teachers who had taken specialized training in firearm defense. We didn't have any incidents. I have been advocating for 20 years now. All these military veterans who come home and can't find work, and they are part of the homelessness we see in this nation, put them to work as security in our nation's schools. Because that is where our most vulnerable population is. And there are sick individuals out there that look at that as a place where, aha, there's armed protection when you go to a ball game. Go to Madison Square Garden to watch the Knicks play. There's armed security there. You go to Citi Field to watch the Mets play. There's armed security there. There's armed security at a shopping mall. when the DNC had their convention, there were more walls and security measures to get through to get into that building than there are on our southern border. And you know what else they had at that DNC convention center? Armed security. You know what every liberal politician who talks about defund the police and more regulation on guns has? Private security. If it's really the gun, where was this hue and cry last week when the healthcare CEO was shot in the back? You have liberals getting tattoos of that assailant. Didn't seem to be a problem with guns then. When Donald Trump was nearly assassinated, not once but twice, scumbags like Jack Black, the half-actor and half-baked wannabe musician, said, "Too bad the guy missed." Wow. I thought guns were evil, especially since the one that hit Donald Trump had that quote-unquote assault weapon, that if we had an assault weapon ban. But see, we didn't hear any of that then, because it's not the gun. In the scenario that liberals agree with us, what was the headline over the CEO assassination? He was evil. He denied claims. He made life hell for people. You even had comedians like Bill Burr talking about, this guy was vile. Why is anybody shedding any tears over him? Really? But we flip the script. We have a shooting in a school, which again is tragic. But now it's the gun is the issue. What about this person? Isn't it interesting? We know more about the shooter of the healthcare CEO than we do either individual that tried to assassinate Donald Trump. Have you thought about that? I have. This school shooting is tragic. But there have been study after study after study. There is ample evidence out there to support, look, there are telltale signs. Kids that are constantly involved in violent type fantasy play and activity via video games, via movie content, etc., etc., etc. Antisocial, mental issues, etc., etc., etc. Most of the time we find out after the fact that there were warning signs and people missed it. But I can tell you this, the solution is not the Joe Biden, confiscate all the guns. They love these types of scenarios because it gives them this excuse to disarm the law-abiding. What we need to do is protect our students, make sure that schools across the country have lockdown procedures in place, have safety measures in place, and yes, there needs to be armed security, because none of this is going to stop until you, quote, fix society. And the only fix for society is the God they kicked out of the public schools when the Supreme Court decided that prayer and Bible reading were no longer necessary in the public school classroom. So may I ask you this question, have the schools improved since then? And this scenario happened at a Christian school. Society is in decay. So we take steps to protect, not just create another political football, which is really all the Democrats are concerned with.